for our post-election discussion is Brian Sobel, KTV political analyst. Brian, Newsom won, and he won easily. How does this help him on policy matters and working now with the legislature?
Well, two things to consider, Heather. He won, that is, that the recall was defeated. But the second part of it, and we heard some of this today, is Governor Newsom's realization that that didn't make a lot of people in California happier about the circumstances in California. And so he's got to kind of play the middle of the street here. He's got to work on his own popularity, and he had some missteps along the way. But he also has to figure out how to handle some of these very, very big issues in California before the next election. Because if you look at some of the recent polling, people are not happy about the circumstances in California for a number of the reasons that were listed in that package. And so that's what Governor Newsom is having to deal with. And the olive branch that was put out there last night by Newsom reflects that.
Brian, clearly, though, a majority of voters in California seem to be endorsing Governor Newsom's COVID policies here, the vaccine mandates, the mask mandates as well. How do you think Governor Newsom interprets this vote, and what does it prompt him to do potentially in terms of potentially other restrictions? How does he look at this moving forward?
Well, I think what happened, Alex, was through the last 8 or 9 weeks, COVID reemerged, ironically, as a very big issue in this campaign. In the early days, it was because a lot of people were upset about the mask mandates and things like that. And then I think people got on board, and rightly so, the science around all of this. And that, along with $80 million and other things and all these high-profile national figures coming in to support Gavin Newsom, certainly helped him. And it does give him momentum for 2022. And I think he was just today trying to make sure that he was showing some humility in the results of the race by reaching out to people who didn't vote for him. And there were quite a few. I mean, not the larger number needed to recall him, but there are a lot of people that were unhappy. But it does change COVID politics in California in the sense that it gives Governor Newsom a boost in that regard.
Yeah, and that was the advice from former Governor Gray Davis. You know, be a little bit humble here after this victory, because we do have the 2022 election to look forward to. You mentioned that this really boosts Newsom's chances of a victory.
Yes, well, he's knocked back a recall effort, and we listened to the ideas around recall reform that comes out of 110 years ago. Initiative, reform, and referendum, which is something people study when they study California politics. And so the ability to knock back a recall when there are recalls against every governor. Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example, had 7 recall attempts against him, none qualified for the ballot, and that was a guy that had won on a recall. So this is kind of a process. And so we may have to live with it, but I think where Governor Newsom has an advantage is he beat back the recall, unlike Gray Davis, and he can use that marching forward as wind behind him.
Yeah, certainly a selling point for Governor Newsom moving forward into 2022. So let's talk about who Governor Newsom potentially could face off against. And obviously, we saw the leading replacement candidate was Republican Larry Elder. Let's look at his performance. He obviously couldn't garner that much support beyond just the conservative base. What do you see his future being? Do you see him facing off against the governor come next year?
He may, Alex, jump back into the race. But I think what he learned last night was that he could grab the Republican and conservative base in California, but it isn't nearly enough votes to win a gubernatorial race. And so the Republicans have to find a candidate who is different, is more moderate, has an interest in more than 1 or 2 issues, that can deliver both an economic program to the state of California, but also is socially aware, embraces things like climate change legislation and other things that would make them attractive, that person attractive not just Republicans, but to Democrats willing to cross over and to independents. The Republicans cannot come up with that kind of candidate. It doesn't matter whether it's Larry Elder or John Cox or the former mayor of San Diego or anybody else. They have to find somebody else. And if we go back to history again, Gray Davis is the only governor in California history to be recalled. And he was recalled by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was that alternative that people were looking for. If absent that, I don't know whether the Republicans are going to find anybody that really can challenge Newsom in a big way.
Well, there's a lot of time between now and November of
sure
2022.
Yes.
We'll see what happens. Brian Sobel, always appreciate your insight. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.